The end of the line. If you think you've heard the darkest prison stories before, think again. What happens behind these walls isn't just punishment, it's isolation at a level most people couldn't serve. I've subscribed. Because the truth you're about to hear isn't something you forget. The call came in just after midnight. A corrections officer at ADX Florence, America's most secure prison, had gone missing. At first, it didn't make sense. This wasn't a place where people just disappeared. Every movement was tracked. Every door controlled. Every second recorded. The facility had been designed for one purpose, to ensure that nothing and no one slipped through the cracks. Yet somehow, something had. By the time the alarm was raised, the entire prison was already on lockdown. Steel doors sealed with mechanical precision. Lights flickered on across every corridor. Surveillance teams scrambled, scanning feeds from hundreds of cameras, searching for anything unusual. But what they found was worse than unusual. It was impossible. Officer Daniel Reeves had last been seen walking down Corridor C, a restricted passage, leading toward one of the most isolated housing units in the entire complex. The footage showed him moving calmly, checking doors, logging routine activity. Then, at exactly 12:17 a.m., the feed cut out. Not glitched. Not distorted. Gone. When the system came back online 32 seconds later, Reeves was no longer in the frame. And there was no record of him leaving. No doors had opened. No alarms had been triggered. No movement had been logged. Inside a prison designed to eliminate uncertainty, something had just defied every rule. Special Agent Laura Bennett arrived before sunrise. She had seen high-security facilities before. Federal prisons. Tactical compounds. Places built to contain the worst of the worst. But ADX Florence was different. There was a silence to it, natural, suffocating. The kind of silence that didn't just surround you, it pressed in. "This place doesn't breathe," she muttered as she stepped through the reinforced entry gates. Warden Harris was already waiting. "Agent Bennett," he said, his voice controlled but strained. "We've never had an incident like this." She studied him carefully. People in his position didn't rattle easily, but this was something else. "Walk me through it," she said. Harris didn't hesitate. Routine check. Officer Reeves was on his assigned path. No deviations. No flagged behavior. Then we lost camera feed for 32 seconds. When it came back, he was gone. No sign of struggle, none. No system breach, not according to our logs. Bennett stopped walking. "That's not possible," she said flatly. Harris didn't respond. Because they both knew the truth. Inside ADX Florence, nothing was supposed to be possible. Reeves wasn't just any officer. He'd been working at the facility for over 8 years. Clean record. Disciplined. Trusted. But as Bennett dug deeper, something started to feel off. His last assignments had all been concentrated in one area, Unit 13. A section of the prison reserved for inmates considered too dangerous, too influential, or too unpredictable to be housed anywhere else. "These are individuals who can't be allowed contact," Harris explained. "Not with each other. Not with the outside world." Bennett nodded. "And yet Reeves kept getting assigned there, by request." She looked at him sharply. "His request?" Harris hesitated. "Yes, that was the first crack. Because no officer volunteered for Unit 13. Not repeatedly. They pulled the inmate logs. Every cell in Unit 13 was occupied by someone with a history that read like a warning label. Organized crime leaders, high-profile offenders, individuals whose actions had once dominated headlines. But one name stood out. Not because of what he had done, but because of what he hadn't done, at least not officially. Inmate number 47,291. No public record. No media coverage. No clear background beyond a sealed case file. "Who is he?" Bennett asked. Harris exhaled slowly. "We don't ask questions about inmates like him. That's not good enough. He was transferred here under special authorization." "That's all we were told." Bennett stared at the file. "No known associates. No recorded incidents inside the facility. And yet, Reeves had spent more time outside that cell than any other." "Pull the footage," she said. The clips were unsettling. Reeves standing outside cell 13-7, longer than necessary. No interaction, no communication. Just standing there, watching. Zoom in, Bennett said. The technician adjusted the frame. Inside the cell, the inmate sat perfectly still, not pacing, not reading, not sleeping. Just sitting, facing the door. As if he knew Reeves was there. As if he had been waiting. Did they ever speak? Bennett asked. No recorded conversations, Harris replied. No violations, but Bennett wasn't convinced. Because people didn't behave like that without reason. And something about the way Reeves lingered, the way the inmate remained motionless, it felt like a silent exchange. One that didn't need words. Then they found something else. Hidden in Reeves' locker. A small, folded piece of paper. No official markings. No authorization stamp. Just a single line, written in careful, deliberate handwriting. It only works if you follow the sequence. Bennett read it twice. Then a third time. What sequence? She asked quietly. No one had an answer. Hours later, a maintenance team reported something unusual. A door. Deep within Corridor C. One that wasn't supposed to open without dual authorization. Had been unlocked, not forced, not damaged, just unlocked. Bennett stood in front of it, her pulse steady but her instincts screaming. This leads where? She asked. Harris swallowed. Sublevel access, meaning areas not listed on standard facility maps. Bennett turned to him. Slowly, you're telling me there are parts of this prison, even you don't fully control. Harris didn't respond. Because that was exactly what he was telling her. The door creaked open. Cold air drifted out. Stale. Heavy. Undisturbed. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. No cameras. No motion sensors. No digital tracking. For the first time since entering ADX Florence, there was a place where the system couldn't see. Bennett stepped forward. Every instinct told her this was the moment everything would change. And as the light from above faded behind her, she realized something else. If Reeves had come down here, then whatever took him had been waiting. At the bottom of the stairs, they found it. A single chair. Bolted to the floor. Facing a wall covered in faint, almost invisible markings, patterns. Sequences. Lines carved with precision. And in the center of it all, one symbol, repeated over and over again. Bennett stepped closer, her breath slowing as the realization began to settle in. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was a system, a code. And someone inside ADX Florence had been trying to use it. But as the team moved further into the room, they noticed something else. Fresh marks. Not old. Not faded. Recent. Very recent. Bennett's voice dropped to a whisper. He was here. Then she looked at the wall again. At the sequence. At the pattern. And finally, at the one detail that made her blood run cold. Because hidden within the markings was Reeves' name. Carved carefully. Deliberately. As if someone had been expecting him. And then the lights went out. Beneath. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Not a flicker. Not a slow fade. 1 second, the dim overhead light exposed the carved walls and the cold steel chair, and the next, everything was gone. For a moment, no one moved. Then the sound came. A low, mechanical click, somewhere above them. Back up lights now, Bennett ordered, her voice sharp but controlled. Nothing. No emergency glow. No system response. Inside the most secure prison in America, they were standing in a blind spot that wasn't supposed to exist. And someone else knew it. A beam of light cut through the darkness as one of the agents activated a handheld torch. It shook slightly in his grip, the narrow cone revealing fragments of the room in pieces, scratches on the floor, dust disturbed in uneven patterns, and the chair. Still there. Still facing the wall. But something had changed. Bennett stepped forward slowly, her instincts pulling her closer despite every warning in her mind. Hold the light steady, she said. The beam settled on the carvings again. The patterns hadn't moved, but now they felt different. More deliberate. More complete. As if the darkness had revealed what the light had hidden. Zoom in here, she whispered, crouching closer. The lines weren't random. They followed a structure repeating shapes, intersecting marks, a sequence that looped but never quite closed. Like instructions. Like a map. "Agent," one of the team members said quietly. She turned. The chair. It wasn't empty anymore. Every muscle in her body locked for a split second. A figure sat slumped forward, head lowered, arms hanging loosely at its sides. No one had heard anyone enter. No footsteps. No door. No movement. Just presence. "Don't move," Bennett said, her voice barely above a whisper. The beam shifted, illuminating the figure more clearly. Uniform. Boots. A badge catching the light. "Officer Daniel Reeves." They approached cautiously. "Reeves," Bennett called out. No response. She reached him first, placing 2 fingers against his neck. Pulse. Weak. But there? "He's alive," she said quickly. "Get medical down here now." But even as the team moved into action, something felt wrong. Reeves' skin was cold. Not just cool cold, like he'd been sitting there far longer than the timeline allowed. "Daniel," she said, shaking his shoulder gently. "Can you hear me?" His head twitched slightly. Then slowly, painfully, it lifted. His eyes opened. And for a brief second, Bennett saw something she couldn't explain. Recognition. Not of her, but of the room. His lips moved. No sound at first. Then, barely audible, "You weren't supposed to come down here." Bennett leaned in. "Who brought you here?" Reeves' gaze drifted past her. To the wall. To the markings. "It's not a place," he whispered. "It's a process." What process? But Reeves didn't answer. Instead, his body stiffened. His eyes widened suddenly, locking onto something behind Bennett. Something that wasn't there. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no, he's not done." And then he collapsed. Medical teams arrived within minutes, pulling Reeves out of the sublevel and rushing him toward the infirmary. Bennett didn't follow. She stayed behind. Because something in his words didn't sit right. "It's not a place. It's a process." She turned back to the wall. To the sequence. To the patterns that seemed to shift the longer she looked at them. "What if this isn't about where he went?" she murmured. "What if it's about what he was doing?" Back in the control room, the situation escalated fast. News of the breach hadn't left the facility, but inside, tension was rising. Because another problem had just surfaced. Inmate number 47,291 was no longer in his cell. "There's no way," Harris snapped, staring at the monitor. Bennett stepped closer. The live feed showed the interior, clearly. Bed. Sink. Wall. Empty. "No signs of forced exit?" she asked. "None. The door log shows it hasn't been touched." "Then where is he?" No one answered. Because once again, the system had failed to explain something it was built to prevent. They reviewed earlier footage. Rewound. Paused. Analyzed frame by frame. And then they saw it. At 12:16 a.m., 1 minute before Reeves disappeared, the inmate moved. It was subtle. A shift in posture. A tilt of the head. As if listening. Then, he stood up. Walked toward the door. And stopped. Exactly 2 steps away. "Freeze it," Bennett said. The image held. The inmate stood perfectly still, facing forward. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, he raised his hand, not touching the door, not signaling. Just lifting it. And then the camera cut, same as before, 32 seconds. Gone. When the feed resumed, the cell was empty. Bennett leaned back, her mind racing. "Same gap," she said. "Same timing." Harris looked at her. "You think it's connected? I don't think it's a coincidence." She turned back to the screen. "To move inside this facility without triggering alarms, you'd need access to something deeper than the main system, which we don't have." Bennett's eyes hardened. "Or something we don't know about." Reeves regained consciousness 2 hours later. But he wasn't the same. His demeanor had changed, subtle, but unmistakable. Calmer. To calm. Like someone who had already accepted something no one else understood. Bennett sat across from him in the observation room. "Daniel," she said gently. "We need you to tell us what happened." He looked at her. and smiled. Not with relief. Not with gratitude. But with something else. Something, knowing. You saw it, didn't you? He said. The room. The markings. Bennett didn't respond. You think it's a code, Reeves continued. Something to solve. He shook his head slowly. It's not. Then what is it? Reeves leaned forward, his voice dropping. It's a sequence you follow. To what? His eyes locked onto hers. To disappear. Bennett felt a chill run through her. That's not possible. Reeves' smile widened slightly. That's what I thought too. Before she could press further, alarms erupted across the facility. Loud, urgent. Continuous. Harris burst into the room. We've got movement in sublevel C. Bennett stood instantly. Who? Harris hesitated. Then said the one thing she wasn't ready to hear. Reeves. They rushed back. Down the same corridor. Through the same door. Into the same darkness. But this time, it wasn't empty. At the far end of the room, illuminated by a faint, flickering light, a figure stood facing the wall, tracing the markings, step by step, line by line, following the sequence. Reeves, Bennett shouted. The figure didn't turn, didn't react, just kept moving, precise, deliberate, like he was completing something. Stop, she yelled, drawing closer. But as she reached out, the lights flickered violently. Once, twice. Then, everything cut out again. When the power returned, the room was empty. No Reeves, no movement, no trace, just the chair, the wall, and one final addition to the sequence, fresh, carved deep into the surface, a new line, a new step, and beneath it, a second name. Not Reeves, not the inmate, but someone still inside the prison, Agent Laura Bennett. The last sequence. They sealed the room within minutes. No one in, no one out. Every corridor leading to sublevel C was locked down, reinforced, and monitored by armed response teams. For the first time, the prison wasn't just containing threats, it was reacting to something it couldn't control. Bennett stood frozen, staring at the wall, her name, carved with the same precision as everything else. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Intentional. You need to step away from this, Harris said behind her, his voice tight with urgency. Whatever this is, it's targeting you now. But Bennett didn't move. Because something had shifted. This wasn't just an investigation anymore. This was an invitation. Back in the control room, the atmosphere was suffocating. Every screen replayed the same 32-second gaps. Every system log showed the same impossible pattern, moments of complete absence, as if parts of reality were being skipped. Tell me we're missing something, Bennett said, her eyes locked on the data. A systems analyst shook his head. There's no breach, no external override. It's like the system is complying. Complying with what? He hesitated. With an internal command sequence. The word hit her instantly. Sequence. She turned sharply. Pull up the markings from the wall. Full reconstruction. The images appeared on the main screen, every line, every symbol, mapped digitally. At first glance, it looked chaotic. But then, it aligned. Each mark corresponded to something, a door, a corridor, a timing interval. Bennett stepped closer, her mind racing. This isn't random, she said. It's a path, Harris frowned. A path to where? She didn't answer right away. Because deep down, she already knew. They overlaid the sequence onto the prison structural blueprint. And everything changed. The lines didn't lead out of the prison. They led through it. Precise movements. Exact timings. Specific locations where the system didn't respond. Blind spots. But not accidental ones, designed. Whoever created this knew the system better than the people running it, Bennett said quietly. Harris shook his head. That's not possible. The design of this facility is classified at the highest level. Then someone at that level built a backdoor. Silence filled the room. Because there was only one type of inmate who would be placed in a facility like this without a public record. The kind whose existence was inconvenient. Inmate number 47,291, Bennett said. Harris nodded slowly. We never got his full file. Just clearance to house him. Then we've been looking at this the wrong way, she replied. He's not just another prisoner. She turned back to the screen. He's the architect. The realization came too late. Another alarm erupted, different this time, not localized. Facility-wide. Report, Harris barked. A guard's voice crackled over the radio. Panicked. Multiple cells are unlocking, no authorization, no control response. What? We're trying to override, but the system isn't responding. Bennett's eyes snapped to the sequence, lines, steps, movements. This is it, she said. He's running it. Across ADX Florence, steel doors began to open, not all at once, not randomly, in order. A sequence, each unlock triggered the next, controlled, calculated. Inmates stepped out into corridors they had never seen before, some confused, some cautious, some already moving, as if they understood something the others didn't. Because this wasn't chaos. This was design. Shut it down, Harris shouted. We can't, the technician yelled back. The system's locked us out. It's following its own protocol. Bennett grabbed the edge of the console. Not its own, she said. His. They ran back toward sublevel C. Because there was only one place this sequence could end. The door was already open. Cold air poured out like a warning. Inside, the room had changed. The markings on the wall were complete. Every line connected. Every symbol aligned. No gaps. No missing pieces. And in the center of the room, he stood there. Inmate number 47,291. He wasn't restrained. Wasn't guarded. He simply stood, facing the wall, as if observing something no one else could see. Bennett stepped forward, her pulse steady despite the chaos behind her. Turn around, she said. Slowly, he did. His expression was calm. Almost relieved. You followed it, he said softly. Bennett's jaw tightened. You built this, he didn't deny it. This place was never meant to hold people, he continued. It was meant to test them. Test what? His eyes met hers. Whether someone could see beyond the system. Harris stepped in. This ends now. Whatever you've done, it already ended. The inmate interrupted calmly. He gestured toward the wall. The sequence is complete. Bennett felt it before she understood it. A shift, subtle, but undeniable, like the air itself, had changed. What does it do? She asked. The inmate smiled faintly. It removes you. Behind them, the lights flickered once, twice. Bennett's mind raced. Reeves, he followed it. That's how he disappeared. Not disappeared, the inmate corrected. Relocated. To where? But he didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back, into the center of the markings. Exactly where the chair had been. Exactly where every line converged. Stop, Bennett shouted, moving toward him. But it was already happening. The lights cut out. This time, longer than before. Not 32 seconds, not a minute, long enough for silence to become something heavier, something final. When the lights returned, the room was empty, no inmate, no trace, no disturbance. Just the wall. And the sequence, still intact, but something was different. One final detail. One final mark, a third name, Daniel Reeves, Agent Laura Bennett. And now, a new addition, Warden Harris. Panic surged through the room. Where is he? One of the agents shouted. Harris spun around. I'm right. And then he froze, because no one was looking at him anymore. They were looking through him. Bennett's voice echoed faintly in his ears, distant, distorted. Harris, he looked down at his hands. They felt real, but something was wrong. The room wasn't responding to him. The air felt thinner, quieter, like he had stepped out of sync with everything around him. No, he whispered. Across the room, Bennett stared at the wall, her face pale. Because she understood now. The sequence didn't break the system. It bypassed it. And anyone who completed it was no longer inside the prison. They were somewhere else. Somewhere the system couldn't reach, or bring them back from. The facility was locked down for weeks. Official reports called it a containment anomaly. No escapees were listed. No breach was confirmed. No explanation was given. The sublevel was sealed permanently. The wall left untouched. But those who had seen it never forgot. Because every now and then, in the quietest parts of the night, cameras inside ADX Florence still flicker. For exactly 32 seconds. And when the feed returns, there's always something new carved into the wall, a line, a step, a name, waiting for the next person to follow the sequence. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what comes next, hit subscribe. Because some truths are only the beginning.